There's a specific kind of fear that shows up after a major financial loss, and it doesn't look like fear. It looks like caution. It looks like wisdom. It looks like a man being careful before he moves again. But it isn't any of those things. It's paralysis, and it's costing men who should be rebuilding right now years of their lives. I lived inside that fear 3 times. After 2010, after COVID, after the rate hikes, and I can tell you exactly what it feels like, exactly what it does to a man on the inside, and exactly how to break out of it. That's what this video is about. After I filed bankruptcy in 2010, something happened that I didn't expect, and I couldn't fully explain it at the time. I stopped being afraid of losing. I was already afraid of moving. Not in a way that I could point to or describe clearly. It wasn't a voice that said, "Don't do that." It was more like a weight, a heaviness that sat on every decision I tried to make. Every time I thought about starting something new, a business, an investment, a plan, there was this immediate internal response. What if it fails again? What if I lose it again? What if I build something and it gets taken away again? That fear made perfect logical sense. I had just lived through a catastrophic loss. My brain was doing exactly what a brain is supposed to do after trauma. It was trying to protect me from experiencing that pain again. The caution felt rational. It felt responsible. It felt like wisdom earned through suffering. But wisdom and paralysis are not the same thing, and I confused them for years. I watched the same thing happen after COVID took the travel company. I had rebuilt something real and worked really hard at it, and it was generating over $1 million a year in revenue, and then watched it disappear overnight through no fault of my own. The fear that followed that collapse was deeper than 2008, because this time I knew exactly how fast something you spent years building could be gone. And then after the fix and flip fund collapsed, after losing nearly $500,000 in investor capital to interest rate hikes I couldn't control, the fear had a new layer. It wasn't just fear of losing, it was fear of letting other people down again. Fear of being the man who couldn't be trusted with other people's money. Fear of what it meant about me. 3 collapses, 3 different flavors of the same fear. And every single time the fear dressed itself up as a caution and told me it was protecting me. It wasn't protecting me. It was keeping me still. And a still man in a rebuild is a man who is falling behind while he thinks he's being careful. So point 1, understand what this fear actually is. The fear of starting over after a major loss is not irrational. Let me say that clearly. It makes complete sense. You built something real, you lost it. Your nervous system learned that building leads to losing, and now it's trying to prevent you from experiencing that again by making every forward movement feel dangerous. That's not weakness. That's your brain doing its job. The problem is that your brain cannot distinguish between genuine danger and the discomfort of growth. It treats both the same way, with resistance, hesitation, and a flood of reasons why now is not the right time, why you need more information first, why the conditions aren't quite right yet. What looks like careful thinking is often your nervous system running an avoidance program, and an avoidance program left unchecked becomes permanent. I've watched men spend 3, 5, 10 years in the aftermath of a financial collapse, not because they lacked ability or opportunity, but because the fear had become so normalized, they stopped noticing it was there. You have to name it before you can deal with it. This is fear of starting over. It is a real, legitimate, understandable response to real pain, and it does not get to run the rest of your life. Point 2, the fear lies about what failure actually costs. Here's what this fear tells you, at least it's what it told me. If you try again and fail, you'll lose everything. Again. And it would be worse than last time, because this time you already know how bad it gets. Here's what the fear doesn't tell you. Staying still has a cost too, a real, measurable, devastating cost that compounds every single month you don't move. After 2008, I spent almost 2 years in a kind of holding pattern, functional, moving, but not really building, not really committed to anything, protecting myself from another loss by not fully investing in anything new. That caution cost me 2 years of momentum, 2 years of income I didn't build, 2 years of progress I didn't make. The fear told me I was being careful. What I was actually doing was paying for my last loss with the currency of my future. Inaction is not neutral. It has a price. And over time, the price of staying frozen becomes higher than the price of trying and failing. The fear lies about what failure costs. It tells you failure is catastrophic and inaction is safe. The truth is that for a man in a rebuild, at 40, at 50, or like me, 58, inaction is the most expensive choice on the table. Point 3. Fear cannot be eliminated. It must be moved through. I want to be honest with you about something that took me a long time to accept. The fear does not go away before you move. It goes away because you moved. And even then, it doesn't disappear completely. It just gets quieter. It gets smaller relative to the momentum you've built. It loses its grip on your decisions because your decisions have proven that it's wrong enough times. But you cannot wait for the fear to leave before you act. That's not how it works. That will never be how it works. The men I've watched successfully rebuild after a major loss, and I've watched many, none of them moved when they felt ready and unafraid. Every single one of them moved while the fear was still present. They felt it fully, and they moved anyway. So after 2008, the first real move I made was terrifying. Starting the travel company felt dangerous in a way I couldn't fully explain. Every step of building it had that background noise of what it's like to fail. But I moved anyway, and the company grew, and the fear got quieter. Not gone, but just quieter. That's the only path through, not around, not under, not waiting for it to lift. Go through. When I was in the military, there was a sign on the wall, or a poster on the wall, and it was a picture of the Arches National Park, the one where you can see through the rock. And the caption on that poster was, "The best way out is always through." And I never knew how much that would mean to me over the course of my life. When facing difficulty or a conflict or major pain, the best way out is always through. Point 4, start smaller than the fear thinks you should. Here's a practical piece that made a real difference for me across all 3 builds. When the fear of starting over is significant, when it feels like every possible next move is too risky, too big, too exposed, the answer is not to push through with something massive. The answer is to start with something so small the fear can't get traction on it. Not because small is the destination, but because small is the door. It's the first step. After the travel company closed, I didn't launch something new immediately. I made one phone call. I reached out to one person I trusted. I took one step that was so small it almost felt embarrassing. But it was forward motion. And forward motion, any forward movement, begins to break the paralysis. What the fear needs to survive is stillness. It needs inaction. It feeds on it. The moment you take one genuine step, even a tiny one, you've introduced movement into a system the fear was counting on staying frozen. The step doesn't have to be impressive. It doesn't have to be bold. It just has to be real. It has to be forward, and it has to happen today. One call, one application, one conversation, one decision. One step small enough that the fear can't use it as evidence of recklessness, but real enough that you can feel the shift when you take it. So start smaller than the fear thinks you should, then take the next step from there. Here's what I want you to understand about everything I just said. The fear of starting over is not a character flaw. It is not evidence that you're not ready. It is not a sign that you should wait longer or plan more carefully or gather more resources before you act. It is a completely normal response to real pain, and it has one job: to keep you still. Your job is to move anyway, not recklessly, not blindly, not without a plan or without thinking, but moving forward consistently, even when the fear is loud, even when the step is small, even when you can't see where it leads. I'm 58 years old now. I've lost everything 3 times. I have felt this fear in 3 different versions across 20 years of my life. And I'm still here, still moving, still rebuilding. Not because the fear went away, but because I learned to move while it was still present. And you can do the same starting today. And if you want a step-by-step system instead of trying to figure this thing out on your own, I put together a free 30-day rebuild blueprint specifically for men in this situation. It's organized into 4 weeks. The first week is about stabilizing. Second week is cash flow. Third week is income creation. And the 4th week is long-term rebuild. You'll get the link in the description below. And then next Monday, we're going to get tactical. We're talking about how to rebuild your income using the skills and experience that you already have. This is something you've got now that you can leverage. So without starting from zero, without gimmicks, that video drops on Monday. So don't miss that one. And if you found this helpful, please subscribe, like, and share this with your friends or family members who need to rebuild as well. And let's rebuild together. That's Wealth Mode.